Okay. Ryan, I wanted to get into the fact that you mentioned to me that GemRate, one of the coolest things about it is how people are using it. And they're using it to tell stories. And I think that's where really, we're seeing it already. I see it on Instagram all the time. Somebody will take a report that you published and they'll put in their story. Someone just did that the other day. They took your story, they took your report, they put in their story, and they said, what is the most interesting thing to you on this? And it was the historical data on the eras that all the grading companies had graded. And the thing that stuck out the most to me was that SGC had 30% of the pre-war market, basically. I forget the exact stat, but they were at 30, like I think it was at 30% of the cards they had graded were pre-war, which was far and away the most of any grading company. And I kind of responded to that person's story. Oh, I think that might have actually, I forget who it was, but I responded to that story and said, oh, it was Teapot. It was Teapot's story. That's who it was. I responded and I said, people don't realize that SGC has been around for decades. So your tool and the report that you published gave people that insight. What are some of the other ways that you can see people telling stories? And what do you like? How do you see this rolling out in the years ahead for GemRate in terms of storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that report in general has probably been the most talked about, just in the sense of there hasn't been much reporting in general for like the broader landscape again of grading and sort of how things compare. And so it was interesting to sort of, with GemRate in particular, one of the goals here is to bring more data to market. And I think this hobby is serviced well by more data being available than less. And so that SGC data being available and sort of the BGS data being available relative to PSA opened up a conversation. Nobody knows all the nuance within it other than the grading companies themselves, but at least starts a discussion, which I think is exciting, versus people just speculating or all these hypotheses being thrown out there. And so it at least starts to give people a reason to go and sort of support things that they've been thinking about. And I think that GemRate is sort of a big opportunity to do that, not only from a macro standpoint at a grading company standpoint, but also from a card standpoint, a set standpoint. And so that's where I think storytelling is very exciting, in the sense of, well, one, I think it's an incredibly valuable tool for content. I haven't been able to produce even a fraction of what I think GemRate can do for the hobby. And I'm hopeful, you're starting to see more of that come up with the different YouTube channels that are featuring our data. It's very exciting to see more and more people dig into it and use it for content purposes. And then I also think, broadly speaking, there's an opportunity to sort of round that out. So right now we're very focused on supply, but I also think the demand side of it is really interesting as well. And so, the GemRate story is not only going to be about supply in the long run. That's sort of never been the only vision. It's about sort of helping people support their thoughts in the market. And I sort of want to shy away from things like valuation and stuff like that, because I do think that makes the card market different than the stock market. Is that storytelling is what drives the narratives, what drives prices ultimately. There's not the same standardization around metrics and ratios and things like that exist in the stock market. And so to the degree that I can bring to market, or that GemRate can bring to market, things that help facilitate stories, I think it does people well. And at the end of the day, it's all subjective, right? And so it just gives people more things to support their ideas. And I think that existing is better than it not. And so I hope GemRate can facilitate a lot more of that.
Yeah, one of the things I want to see as we go forward, as far as data being presented by collectors or content creators to their audiences and to their friends, and that we see a lot of graphs now. You see a lot of graphs about how a certain card has performed over time, up, down. We have the Q1 bubble back in this time last year. But whenever I see the graph on the value of a specific card, I would like to see a second curve on that graph showing me the rate of growth of the population or the frequency of grading. Like, if a card goes up in value a ton, I want to see how many cards, like I want to see this. I want to see them lined up by date. I want to see the value of the card and the amount of the population of that particular card in the grade. And as you move along the curve, I want to see if the value comes down, did the population spike a lot, like over the course of however many days, weeks, or months, or years even? I think, it tells a more complete story overall on the item, the collectible, the asset, if you will, right? It's one thing to say that this card, it went up in value, it went up 10x in a year, and then it came down 80%. So it's still double what it was before, but it went up, it went down. Well, did it come down because the population just got out of control? Is there a big bar showing the increase in the population? I think that provides a nice rounded, and there's probably another metric that can be layered on top of that too. But for right now, those are two nice data points to really paint a picture as to what this, how this card is performing, why it's performing the way it is, and just more information on it, more data, more detail on that card. So, to the people who put out the graphs, start layering on the GemRate graph, because one of the things that GemRate can do, I have it written down here. You call it data replay. We can go back in time and see what the population was of a card at a certain time. So can I go into GemRate and generate a graph or a curve that's going to show me how that card's population changed over time?
Yeah, we think that's one of the more powerful things that we offer. And it took, I wanted to wait till we had a decent amount of data to sort of really paint that picture. But yeah, you can look, since we launched the data, we started collecting it in March of last year, and you can go back and look at how any card, any set has trended over time since then. And, obviously this continues to become more valuable as we continue to sort of add more data to the data set over time here. But to your exact point, yeah, you want to understand to what degree is this being driven by, increased supply, or is it player performance, or is it the market moving on to something else? And at the very least, it should be something to consider. And so, yes, you can see that. So there's two ways to use it. One is just to trend it over time, which I think makes perfect sense in the price scenario. And then two, I like to just go look at I like to compare a set today versus, 8 months ago. In particular, one of the sets I'm collecting is a 2014 Kaboom set. And I just like to see, where are things moving? So one of the challenges that you have today is most of these tools are built through the lens of a card, right? And so I actually want to see it sometimes through the lens of a set and other players in that set, and say, hey, is the LeBron card moving faster than the Durant card? Is it moving faster than the Kobe card? And so when you actually can view it on GemRate, you can see it relative to others, which is a really important feature that we have. So it's not just through the lens of a single card, but you can also look at the whole set.